This is all wrong. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
You know what's never saved the planet? Your sarcasm.
How dare you?
Nerdrotic.com.
You know, Disney's had a bad week when we're in the second week of a major MCU film, and we had Disney Plus Day with some major Marvel Cinematic Universe announcements, and the biggest news was Tobey Maguire's junk, and the news resurfacing that Ironheart was possibly ripped off from an adult parody. But Disney's bad week doesn't end there. We'll get to both of those stories and the possibility of the Eternals being a flop and Disney Plus Day being a complete disaster. But first, a quick reminder. It was a few months back when the star of the very successful and record-breaking Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Bracelets, Simu Liu, decided to put yours truly and some of my friends on blast for supposedly calling his film a flop. When I put this thumbnail on this video, it was to cover an article from comicbook.com that was speculating that if Shang-Chi wasn't a success, it could delay the Eternals. Now, obviously that didn't happen, but fast forward to a couple of days ago. We received these things known as facts, but before I get started with this, I want to state once again that I don't mind that Simu Liu called out the channel. As a matter of fact, I thought it was kind of funny, it was all in good fun, and hey, it gave it a good bump, so I'm grateful. Now, I know sometimes perception is reality, but it is rarely the truth, and this is the little game we play in the media. Disney, the giant corporation, says something, and a lot of people take it at face value. A lot of us don't. With the help and support of you lovely people in the audience out there, we content creators, be it YouTubers or podcasters, have been, and I'll use their language, somewhat problematic to the narrative. That's why we see things like Rotten Tomatoes changing its entire platform and basically ruining it to protect one Disney Marvel film. And we see YouTube removing the dislike button to protect a few small creators like Disney and the White House. But we found out the truth a couple of days ago when Disney had to come out with its quarterly report, and we learned that Black Widow and Shang-Chi did indeed lose money.
Well.
The company, being Disney, released such films as Black Widow, Free Guy, and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Bracelets during those 3 months and delivered solid box office results. However, higher operating and market costs led to the company's content sales and licensing segment to post an operating loss of $65 million during that quarter. Now, I'm a simple man, and maybe I just don't understand what the definition of a box office bomb or flop is, so let's go to it. In the film and media industry, if a film released in theaters fails to break even by a large amount, it is considered a box office bomb or a box office flop, thus losing money for the distributor, studio, and or production company that invested in it. So, if both Black Widow and Shang-Chi lost money for Marvel for whatever reason, then by definition, they are flops. Of course, COVID factors into this in a big way, and I never said it didn't. I have argued that there are other factors that the access media, the mainstream media, and corporate simps here on YouTube refuse to acknowledge, but I'm happy to. For instance, Hollywood has lost the habitual moviegoer, and a lot of them just haven't come back. And Hollywood has spent the last few years alienating a large portion of this country, and that has consequences. And while I don't think it's anywhere near being a majority, I think it's enough people to put a dent in those box office numbers. And incidentally, that number of people who are just fed up with Hollywood is growing every single day. So yes, there are some very valid reasons why Black Widow and Shang-Chi lost money. The fact remains they lost money. We'll learn what happened with the Eternals later, but I'm guessing we're going to see the same results. We learned a couple of days ago that it had a 75% drop Friday to Friday from a weekend where they already had to radically adjust the estimates. And remember, it was just a month ago when Deadline reported on October 13th, Eternals first day advance tickets beating Shang-Chi and Black Widow, AMC's biggest day one pre-sales of the year. And just 2 days later from Screen Rant, Eternals early box office predictions highest of MCU Phase 4 so far. This brings us, and I can't believe I'm doing this, to Forbes and Cuties fan Scotty Mendelson. Friday box office, Eternals plunges 75% as Venom 2 tops $200 million. Again, according to the very favorable estimates, a Marvel film, The Eternals, is barely beating out Clifford the Big Red Dog, only beating it by $7 million. How far have the mighty fallen? Well, you need to compare Eternals to Incredible Hulk, which I would watch 1,000 times before I watch Eternals again, the second film in the very experimental Marvel Cinematic Universe at the time without the brand recognition in 2008. Marvel's Eternals dropped an expectedly harsh 74.6 on Friday, earning a $7.819 million and bringing in its 8-day cum to $99.084 million. The MCU flick should cross $100 million today, or just a day faster than The Incredible Hulk. After that, 2008 releases $55 million midsummer debut. The Friday-to-Friday drop is the third worst drop for an MCU title, behind only Black Widow, which fell 80% from a $39 million Friday, and Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I like to call Wasp and Ant-Man, which tumbled 75% from a $33 million Friday. Once again, Incredible Hulk came out in 2008, so if you adjust it for inflation, technically it performed better than Eternals. But that wasn't the only bad news, because all of this happened on Disney Plus Day, or what I would like to call D Plus Day, where they announced a bunch of projects that were in development that won't be out for a couple of years to try to entice investors who are already upset at the lack of content on D Plus, and D Plus Day was an abysmal failure. If it wasn't enough of a head scratcher that the Eternals is still at 47% on Rotten Tomatoes with the critics, the Access Media once again has turned on their masters, and they weren't shy about expressing their disappointment with D Plus Day. Disney Plus Day, Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar disappoint, and that's from Variety. Disney Plus Day was an unadulterated disaster. That's a good video title. Everything that went wrong with Disney Plus Day. What was wrong with Disney Plus Day? Well, aside from the fact that it was run by Disney, they decided to announce everything on Twitter and completely ignore YouTube. And it was nothing but title cards for shows we largely knew were coming out already. And the Marvel footage was behind a paywall on Disney Plus, and no one knew it. We'll start with the good. And it's only one thing for me. Yes, the Moon Knight trailer, and I like Oscar Isaac's casting. It's a great character from the comic books. I think this show has a lot of potential, but I also thought that about all the previous Disney Plus shows. I would be excited about She-Hulk. She's one of my favorite Marvel characters, but then I remembered it's being written by Dana Schwartz, who currently has me blocked on Twitter. Dana's famous for writing horrible takes on Twitter, The White Man's Guide to White Male Writers of the Western Canon. What she isn't famous for is writing comic books or television. And while what we saw of She-Hulk looked like classic She-Hulk, we all know we'll end up seeing this someday. Now let's go to the bad. In the grand tradition of Warner Brothers having Jar Jar Abrams reimagine Batman the Animated Series, Disney is going to continue X-Men the Animated Series, and I'm sure it will be much more accessible and relatable to a modern audience. Just leave it alone. Yes, I saw the extended Hawkeye trailer, and based on everything I've seen from Disney Plus, it didn't change my mind. It looks like it's going to be another deconstructed character. And the ugly, and we'll start out with the new Marvel Disney Plus title card, which invokes this image, the all-new, all-different Marvel. Bypassing decades of classic Marvel comics that sold in the millions to rush into the era of identity politics, alienated fans, and comics that sold in the thousands. Speaking of identity politics, we saw some footage from Miss Marvel, and they didn't waste any time.
Kamala, let's talk about you.
It's not really the brown girls from Jersey City who save the world.
Miss Marvel is one of the newer characters.
Marvel will tell you that Miss Marvel is incredibly popular.
When Miss Marvel first came out, we had such an incredible reaction.
It was so incredibly popular.
Bullshit.
Some will say that she could even replace Spider-Man in the MCU, but the data says otherwise. Canceled books and a video game that she starred in that lost $50 million. I'm sorry, $63 million. Miss Marvel is written by Bisha K. Ali, who was famous for being a feminist and not famous for writing comic books or television. Then there's Ironheart, Riri Williams, a derivative character of Iron Man that was a complete failure in the comic books, but this announcement did cause an old story to resurface, and yes, Ironheart is indeed ripped off, in my opinion, from a Japanese porn parody of the same name. If you look at the mask in particular and the costume, they are very similar. Now, this article is from 2016, and yes, this parody came out in 2014, and Ironheart was created or ripped off, in my opinion, in 2016. Then there was the leaked Spider-Man No Way Home pics from John Campea. Now, I wasn't sure if these things were real or fake, and John did put his watermark on, and apparently he did get a call from Sony to pull those things back, and he did delete the tweets, but then John decided to double down and get in the weeds, or maybe the pubic hair.
Toby and the light source is hitting the right side of his face. And I can't believe I'm about to say this. I never thought I would say this in my entire online career. But look closely at Tobey Maguire's dick.
That's right. John Campea is basing the validity of these pics on the shadows of Tobey Maguire's junk specifically.
Look closely at Tobey Maguire's dick.
I'm guessing most people would rather wait for the film, but I have no idea if the pictures are legit or not. But what I do know is Spider-Man No Way Home is going to make a lot of money, and that will be the true barometer of the success of the other Marvel films. All I know is that was more compelling than most of what I saw coming from Disney+. Guess I should have phrased that better. I think The Eternals is just the beginning, and even with the films I'm looking forward to, like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, they're introducing characters that are solely based on identity and nothing else, like America Chavez. And after a Disney Plus day where they announced that we're going to get an Echo show and an Agatha Harkness show and an Ironheart show before we're going to get characters like Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, Ben Grimm, Doctor Doom, the Silver Surfer, and Namor, and the X-Men, it looks like the investors aren't that enamored with the MCU and what Disney has to offer in the future, despite Disney Plus Day just being a few days ago, despite being in the second week of a major Marvel Cinematic Universe release. The stock didn't even get a slight bump, which is a disaster for Disney. And sure, there's still Spider-Man No Way Home, and yes, it's going to be a big hit for Sony. Listen, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is still the biggest brand out there, although I think it's seen its better days, but it's undeniable that it had a bad week, so all I've got left to say is take the L, Marvel.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.
Thanks for listening. If you like what I do, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment below. It really is appreciated, and it really does help independent content creators here on the platform. I will see you in the next video.